Hi everybody. I wasn't going to review any more Nick Spencer books. I'd had enough of his soapbox routine, but Douglas Ernst said I should have another go at Secret Empire, so here we go. There's no point in reviewing the entire book. You already know what's in it. He doubles down on his political grandstanding. He has the real Captain America go to a black site prison to confront Hydra Cap. Hydra Cap brags about what he did. It's painfully obvious Nick uses Hydra Cap as a straw man for Donald Trump and his supporters, right down to bragging about their love for power and fear of losing it. Nick also uses Hydra Cap to rant about how the United States, quote, enabled fascism by creating laws that allowed him to gain power legally. There's even a bit in there about using pardon powers to absolve himself and Hydra agents, just in case Nick thought you didn't get the hint. Hydra Cap's rant is just Nick on his soapbox again. Not telling a story, just whining about the creep of, quote, fascism in the US. Never mind that so far everything Trump has done that annoyed Democrats or Republicans either failed to pass or was stayed by courts. This so-called creeping fascism doesn't seem to work in the United States democracy. It's almost like the people, no matter where they fall on the political spectrum, won't let the government tell them what to do. Nick takes shots at the heroes again. Through Hydra Cap, he mouths off about them being, quote, a band of arrogant, out-of-touch sycophants in masks. He ignores that these are the very same people he tried to get the fans to root for throughout his idiotic series. The entire book is nothing more than a fuck you shouted by a timid, cowardly man-child. I understand, Nick. You thought you were doing something brilliant, but the fans rejected it. And now, like your perverse creation, you flail around trying to find something, anything, that'll sting as much as that first Hail Hydra. But you won't, and you can't, because we're on to you, Nick. We know your tricks, we know your tactics, and we're done being your victims. So of course, like every person who finds that their victims found the courage to stand up to them, Nick Spencer turns to gaslighting. Gaslighting is a form of psychological abuse used by narcissists in order to instill in their victims a sense of anxiety and confusion to the point where they no longer trust their own memory, perception, or judgment. The techniques used in gaslighting are like those used in brainwashing, interrogation, and torture by intelligence agencies, law enforcement, and other groups. The purpose is to make you doubt yourself and your judgment, especially about the things that the person using it did to you. This is what Nick Spencer does in Secret Empire Omega. He gaslights the fans who rejected his story, especially those who love Captain America. He does this by having Cap recount meeting a boy trapped under rubble. Cap says, "It was during the cleanup after the Battle of Washington. I came across a little boy in the rubble. I reached out to him, and he flinched, pulled away. He was afraid of me, and I realized this would be my life now. That even though the world had seen us fight, even with Stark's company spending millions explaining what happened to me, on some level, this would always be there. There would always be a scar." Yeah, Nick, there will always be a scar. The one you created. The one you feel proud of. The one that you'd have no problem doing again. How warped is your mind that you pat yourself on the back for ruining someone to teach them a lesson? You're like the mom who starves her child and then brags about helping the kid lose weight when the kid's got an eating disorder. You're like the dad who beats his son and then brags about how he toughened him up when the son stands up to him. You're like the pervert who rapes a child and then brags about teaching the kid about modesty and betrayal when he grows up and confronts them. You used a beloved character to tear down fans and attack your political opponents. And now that those people are jaded and distrustful, you're boasting about how you taught them a valuable lesson? Get off your high horse, Nick. You're not the hero. You're the bargain basement villain. This is pure narcissism. There's no self-awareness in this man. No understanding of what he's done or how it's hurt the fans or the industry. This book was his response to all that backlash. I get it, Nick. It probably doesn't feel good to have most of the comic book fandom hating you. It probably doesn't feel good that your super awesome diatribe against Trump fell flat. You expected everyone to love your hate letter to a so-called fascist nation. Instead, it was the lowest selling continuity-wide Marvel event in years. The orders were lower than any major Marvel event in a decade, and at best you might have sold 2/3 of the overshipped books. You probably barely sold half the orders. That's why your own coworkers call you Thick Spencer, because of all the unsold Secret Empire books. That's got to hurt, and I might otherwise feel sorry for you, Nick, except you don't know when to stop. Some damaged part of you makes you keep hitting people. Over on Twitter, Nick went on a multi-tweet rant about the quote harassment comic book professionals experience on social media. In a show of a total lack of self-awareness, Nick tweeted this: "Critics in comics have definitely watched the temperature get too hot, seen creators get real threats to their safety, and kept going. When you fire people up to the extent some do, you're playing with something dangerous." Did you say the same thing when people went after Marvel's VP of Sales David Gabriel, Nick? He got threats, and yet no one from your side seemed to care. Maybe that was because they were too busy sending the threats and demanding Marvel fire him for telling an interviewer what retailers told him. That's right. Your side attacked the man for something he didn't say, and then ignored the part where he said he didn't believe what the retailers told him. How about when creators attack fans, support doxing them, and send their followers to harass them? Or when media outlets target a YouTuber, accusing him of racism, sexism, and transphobia, and placing him and his children in danger should anyone dox him? Where was your concern then? Nick continues, "There is a way to voice criticism responsibly, but a lot of what's driving the conversation now is not that. And this is entirely bipartisan and in every direction, YouTube, Twitter, etc. I'm sure you're going to talk about how creators like Dan Slott, Magdalene Visaggio, Gabby Rivera, Gail Simone, Ron Mars, Mark Wade, and yourself, and I'll be generous, sometimes cross the line on social media. Who am I kidding? You're not going to do that, are you, Nick? You're just going to blame one side while claiming the negativity is, quote, bipartisan." He goes on, "I talk to lots of creators who are canceling shows, needing security for shows, and going to shows stressed out about this shit. Name them, Nick. Name the creators who've canceled shows and needed security. Name them. Better yet, don't name the creators. Name the conventions. I'm sure if this happened, we could verify this with them. But you can't because it never happened. We know you're lying, Nick. And you know you're lying. And we know you're lying. And you know we know you're lying. So why are you lying, Nick?" He goes on, "It has to stop. You can't have it both ways, Nick. You threw the first punch, and the second, and the third, and so on until the fans hit the ground. And you kicked them while they were down. You spat in their faces and laughed, and then you called your friends over to let them get some shots in too. You don't get to complain when someone gets up and hits your ass back. If you want the fighting to stop, then stop starting fights." He goes on, "Before you do your video or rant or whatever, ask yourself, does this need to get personal, or could someone see this and take it as an indication that the person behind the work I'm criticizing needs to be harassed/harmed? Do you ever take your own advice before you rattle off tweets about Donald Trump, Nick? How about his administration? How about his supporters? How about conservatives in general? How about minorities and women and gays who reject the progressive agenda? How about Captain America fans who don't like your work? Oh, I see. It's fine for you to rant about them in whatever way you see fit, no matter what those words may cause other people to do. It's just that nobody can do it to you or your group. That's one hell of a double standard, Nick." He ends with this, "And if you think this is just some kind of disingenuous attempt by creators to make themselves critic-proof, consider this. If you err on the side of caution with this stuff, you're giving us less room to deflect, aren't you? No, we're playing into your hand by allowing you to attack people unchecked and unquestioned. Here's the deal, Nick. I don't like bullies. I especially don't like bullies who hide behind popularity or play the victim. You started the fight, Nick, just like Aubrey Sitterson and Heather Antos. When fans fought back, y'all ran and got your crew. And when fans started landing punches, y'all want to claim that you're the victim. You're not a victim, Nick. You're an asshole. You were born an asshole, you'll die an asshole, and only other pussy-ass, bitch-made assholes will mourn you. Don't get salty because people didn't like your story. I get it. You thought you were clever. The thing is, when you think you're clever, you're not really clever. Fans saw through your hate boner over the election, and like your failed candidate now running around blaming everyone for her loss but herself, you can't let it go. You lost, fair and square, even with your weak-ass candidate cheating her way to the nomination. Like you, she thumbed her nose at anybody who didn't support 100% of her politics. And like her, nobody likes you. You took a cherished character and pissed all over him, and now you're whining that people didn't like it. Last year, Chris Evans dressed up as Cap and visited sick kids in a hospital. Just him showing up in that suit brought joy to them. You took that symbol of joy and happiness and ruined it because you're a shallow, narcissistic, hateful, vindictive, bitter man. Your soul is an appalling dump heap overflowing with the most disgraceful assortment of rubbish imaginable, mangled up in tangled up knots. You don't get to lecture anybody until you can make that small heart of yours grow 3 sizes. Until then, as I said in my other video, from the heart, fuck you.